Le ka klenach Meda DeWitt yuchat duasak shinget klenach zitsinok yuchat duasak nanyaina chatsati kachadi yedi chatsati shtakin kwan ayachat. I am Tlingit and also part Tahltan, and I was born on Prince of Wales Island in southeast Alaska, but my family's come from Wrangell and Yakutat.
And my grandfather, he was a country doctor. He would see the Native women, treat them, and deliver their babies. And so he'd get paid in food and knowledge. And so I learned how to make salves and ointments, lotions, all that kind of stuff from family. When I was 18, my grandfather's had a vision, and he's like, "You're going to do this when you grow up." But I ended up getting really sick. And in indigenous cultures around the world, it's called the healer sickness. And it really was through indigenous traditional healing medicine that I came from the brink of death into being a healthy person again.
This is watermelon berry, and it's one of our local favorites. And it tastes like cucumbers. It's quite refreshing, especially on a hot summer day. When it's this tall, you can eat the end, like we just popped off the end, and like right here, this would be a good one. I'm not going to nib the ends on all the plant stalks because I would like the berries to come in. This is a perennial. You can transplant them, and they're beautiful, succulent, and good to nibble on. They're good for kids too because they're easy to identify. If you look, if you see the pattern, how it goes back and forth, it's called twisted stalk. It's found in the boreal forest and in the rainforest. So most of Alaska's ecoregions, you can find this. Elderberry is quite prolific, especially in south central and southeast. Many people know it for its sambuca properties. That is a chemical molecule that's inside of it that helps to clear the lungs. So people generally get it for colds or flus or allergies. Once the flowers are dried, then you can make them in tea, and then you would just let, inhale the vapors, the steam, and drink the tea, and it will help to clear up the lungs and bring in more oxygen. So it does have cyanide in it, but once again, it breaks down with heat. So when the flowers are out, you take them off of the stems and you dehydrate them, and the heat from the dehydrator is enough to break it down in the flowers. Plants are funny that way. Like a lot of times, if they have something that's negative with them, then they have an opposite effect that's also the medicine. You know what this is.
I do.
So this is our spruce tips, and the spruce tips are just a beautiful addition to any spring menu. It's high in vitamin C, and especially citric acid. So you can think of these almost as our version of lemons, limes, and oranges. It's going to have that same citric flavor and benefits. So vitamin C is important for the Krebs cycle in the body and producing energy. It's also an important anti-inflammatory and antioxidant in the body. Sometimes people will freeze these in ice cubes. So throughout the winter, you can just drop your ice cubes in your drink. Or, we've had wood stoves for a long time here in the state. Before then, it'd be a kettle over the hearth fire. We would put spruce tips and spruce boughs in there, and what it does is it infuses the air in the house and cleans it after a long winter. And even if there's been sickness in the house, it helps to clean the air and kill the virus or bacteria in the air. This is Hedysarum alpinium, also known as Indian potato. And in Tlingit or Tlingit, it's called sats. It is one of our cornerstone complex carbohydrates that we relied on and cultivated on purpose throughout the state. This plant is generally harvested either in the spring or the fall. The plant identification, you actually learn how to identify these by just the twigs. Chief Lee of the Awanuiarangi tribe, he calls them pixie sticks, which is kind of funny. But they have like a reddish brown, and they stand up throughout the winter, and maybe they'll have like old seeds on them. It ends up being a prebiotic in the intestines, which means it creates a good environment for probiotics or bacteria, good bacteria in the guts. Oh, here you go. The thing about these is they're fun because it's a treasure hunt. So these are the roots. They're a nice tuber. They have a nice nutty flavor to them. But what you do when you harvest these is you leave a couple of inches, right, this bottom, because if you look, it's going to have like little new shoots and roots, and then it will grow this tuber again. So that's part of the harvesting practices and sustainable harvesting practices, is you don't take the whole plant. You just take part of the plant and then you put the rest back, and then it regrows. Dandelions are actually one of the species that is most common, is from China. It was traded on the Silk Roads up into Europe, and the pilgrims brought it with them across on like the Mayflower. They got to the US and they planted them, and the wind carried the dandelions and spread them, so they made it up into the southwest Alaska before contact, but the elders knew something was coming because of the plant moving in, a different plant. Isn't that cool? The leaves are what is called a bitter, and so they help to break down the fats. So the funny thing about fat is we actually digest it twice, because it has to be broken down before we can absorb it. So the dandelion leaves with those bitters, they break down the fats while you're on your first iteration, which then helps you to absorb them more readily and in a healthier version than having to cycle it through the liver. The root itself is a cleanser. It cleanses the liver. Now, the funny thing about dandelions is you do not want to harvest it in an area that has a history of toxins, because it will have absorbed those toxins. So you want to make sure the dandelions are in a clean area. That's why I like growing them in the yard, in the garden. I'll pull them up right out of the garden with nice, especially because it's not rocky and it's soft. The roots will be thicker, straighter, and less gnarly, so it's easier to harvest. This is called silverleaf because you can see the soft underside with this color. These roots, which there's some of these that I would dig up that are a little bit older, they'll have more roots on them. This is like our traditional spaghetti. People would harvest these and take them to like weddings, especially, or big feast days, and everybody would bring bundles and they'd pile them, put a blanket over them, and steam them, and they steam down. And again, it's going to be kind of sweet, kind of nutty, and they would just be something that you would feast on. The leaves, they have a molecule that is similar to green tea. You can have that stimulant with a little bit of a diuretic that works, and traditionally in some medicines, especially I've read in Tibetan medicine, they would dry the leaves, grind it up, and then you would eat the powder for intestinal issues or ulcers, leaky gut, anything like that, and it would be an astringent for the digestive system to help heal it. These, again, you take off the roots that you want, and then you put the plant back, and if you see it has all these hair roots, you just leave some of these hair roots, it'll grow again. And these actually have a strawberry runner to them, is how they propagate. They're not quite out yet on these plants, you don't see them yet, but they're prolific. You can step on them and they'll bounce right back. They're hardy, they're good, like every part of the plant is good for you. And that's that. You put that nubs back in and they'll regrow.